our last issue. And today's topic is the outlook for identity in an advanced TV ecosystem, and it is an advanced TV ecosystem. I can't tell you how many screens I've watched videos on in the last 48 hours, but suffice it to say, there were quite a few ways to get an image to me. And today, to talk about that, well, before we get into that, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the Marketing Club of New York and our 2022 sponsors. You see our gold, silver, bronze, and supporting sponsors there. And I'm happy, as Chet Dalzell, I'm a club board member. I'm happy to answer any questions about getting involved with the club as a sponsor and as a member. It's a superb opportunity to connect with your peers in the marketing community of Greater New York and beyond, for that matter. To that point, we're going to be doing some programming for the balance of the summer. We'll be having one thing you're not seeing on is a August rooftop. We haven't set the date yet, but once we do, we will share that with you. Could be even late July, so just be on the lookout for that. And then we're doing our Data Privacy Summit in September. It will be a virtual event, 90 minutes, an opportunity to discuss all the policy making, ethics, AI, self-regulation, all that's in play for data privacy. Then we have a very special event, an always popular comedy and cocktails. It's going to be during Advertising Week in New York, September 21st. So once we get the time set, please join us for that. That's a live event. And then in November, we have our annual Silver Apple Awards Gala. This is an opportunity to recognize marketing leaders of 25 years or more. And we will be putting out our call for nominations for this specific award program later, I think right after the 4th. So just look for that, call for nominations for our Silver Apples, with the gala going to be November 10th at the Edison Ballroom off Times Square in New York. So a little bit of housekeeping. We will, most of the attendees are already muted, and we'll stay muted throughout the presentation. We will be using the QA box to get all the questions to our presenters. Any tech difficulties, please use the chat box for that. We'll be monitoring that to have help with troubleshooting as needed. And we will be using reserving some time toward the end of the webinar to open up for questions. So please just queue them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation and discussion. Now, before I introduce our speakers, I just want to let you know, Bruce came to us in January, and I think he gave us a little bit of an update, I believe, in May, and he projected that addressable TV spending just on data alone, maybe 5 billion this year, a 19% uptick since last year. And meanwhile, when you look at video spend, I alluded to this earlier, that's linear, digital video, connected TVs, that's going to reach 130 billion this year projected. And which that complex video environment is kind of portends why we're doing this discussion today, because identity and data matter so greatly as a consumer, as an individual, as a household goes from screen to screen. So to help us sort this out today, we have this superb panel. Besides Bruce, who's Senior Managing Director of Winterberry Group and does our annual outlook on media spend each year, we have from the TV and data environment, Justin Rosen, who is with Ampersand. He's Senior Vice President of Data and Analytics. Matt Prataroli, who's Vice President of Digital Platform and Agency Partnerships with Alliant. And also Jay Prasad, who's our Chief Strategy Officer at LiveRamp TV. So many of us know LiveRamp for all the data integrations and data staging they do. He's specifically with TV team. So without any further ado, Bruce, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Thank you, Chet. And I'm going to bring this up. Oops. And let us see if I've got this working. Yep, there we go. All right, thank you all. So I'm going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes just kind of walking you through the highlights of our paper. This is a fourth in our series that we started in the midst of COVID in 2020. We looked at identity broadly, we looked at collaboration, we looked at contextual, and now we're really honing in on advanced TV because this is probably the hottest topic this year. So the paper's up and available on our website as well as that of our sponsors. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of background, some of the solutions, and our outlook. The best place to start is what is advanced TV and why do we call this? So all forms of addressable TV inventory, excluding broadcast linear, where everybody gets the same content and advertising. So it goes into that bucket. But what does that mean? It means addressable linear on national TV. It's addressable to the home linear for local spot video demand on TV. It's connected TV, which is internet delivered and includes OTT programming. So it's a fairly broad base, but the key is this is something that can be addressed or targeted to the home. Why are we talking about this now? Brand marketers have a challenge as media has fragmented. How do I locate and how do I reach, how do I identify, how do I locate the harder to find audiences as well as that mass audience? So the demand right now, it's this convergence of linear and programmatic. When I think about TV, I think about defining an audience that says, find me Bruce across all screens. And so as linear and programmatic have begun to converge around that main screen, it's driving the market. It's a shift across addressable to audience-based media buying. But I'm not thinking about DMAs anymore. I'm really thinking about individual households. It's that reach extension, finding out, not everybody is connected by cable anymore. It's multiple devices. It's also, when we think about the KPIs, it's that shift to outcome-driven measurement as opposed to just thinking about impressions. So again, it's a transformation as these two linear and programmatic converge. And also, we're looking at very high CPMs. Traditionally, this has been one of the most expensive categories. So you really want to be efficient in your audience and you need to be able to measure that and show that efficiency. The use cases, media planning. How do I define segment, size, and addressable audience? How do I match that at the household? How do I think about, bless you, individuals as I view that content? I want to think about the issues in identity and activation. How can I understand that household? So now I have to reach them and find them. And then finally, it's about measurement, to analyze that engagement and understand how people think about and how they interact with content and advertising. We dropped a survey in May of brands and agencies in both the US and UK. And one of the, among the focal points, the need to better define audiences for targeting. And the way we have to think about that is in linear, when I'm doing audience development, I'm talking to creative, I'm looking at my personas, I'm thinking about DMAs. It's a different segmentation. In digital, it was, okay, I'm using my data science, I'm thinking about individuals as I bring up audiences. Bringing those two disciplines together for unified buying is really very, very difficult. Frequency capping of advertisements, for viewers, thinking about how do I activate on ATV across which channels, measuring. But really that audience definition is a huge challenge. Another piece of complexity that makes this market unique is the fact that there are 5 paths to buying an audience. I can buy that audience through a streaming app. I can buy it through a broadband ISP provider. I could buy that audience through a set-top box. I could buy it through a streaming device, a Roku, an Amazon Fire Stick. I could buy it through a gaming device. Or I could actually buy it directly from the smart TV OEMs, the Samsungs, the Vizios, etc. So all of a sudden, it's one screen, but there are 5 different paths into that screen that I can buy, which makes capping frequency really hard and understanding. How do I measure what's working across what path? When we asked our survey group, what are you using today? Half of them are using set-top box. 20% are using all of it. 45%. So this tells us where the state of the market is right now. But where we're seeing probably some of the bigger increases, TV set via the TV manufacturer. When you look at Vizio's numbers or LG numbers, all of a sudden they didn't have an ad business. Now they've got, hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising. But as a buyer, you're looking going, all right, how do I deal with all of this? I also have a number of other challenges. I have the paths to TV set. I have the complexity of measurement. Interestingly enough, in the UK, because they don't have the same level of set-top box complexity, they only have a handful of providers, they're further ahead on measurement, but it's a real focus. There's a gap. We don't have identity standards. What should I use and how do I make identity interoperable? So as I start to think about the solutions today, there are 3 primary areas I think about. I need identity to support the buying across the different paths, whether that's through a manufacturer, through a private marketplace. It's really, we are seeing that shift to programmatic buying that linear never had, but as these converge, we think that's the direction the market's going. How do I link, if there are 90 different identity solutions, how do I build that reference data set, so that I can crosswalk? And also, how do I ensure that if I'm sharing my data between a brand and a media owner, how do I understand privacy compliance, especially as I go back and forth among companies? One of the other unique areas here, while IP address has been part of identity since the beginning, at the household level, it's very much the key identifier, because you start with the household, which means thinking about the IP, and then thinking about how do I link that to all the people in the household. Well, we have some issues. One, there was something called IPv4 version 4. It only covered 4 billion endpoints. We have a lot more people than that and a whole lot more devices. So they moved to a new standard IPv6. So the technology had to transition. We're also seeing, in the name of privacy, in the name of protecting data, or whatever the decision is, that the IP address you get may not actually be, it may look like it's correct, but they're masking part of the number. So it's not accurate as it might be. And we're also trying to think across all of these identifiers, IP, device ID, app login, what are we going to lose? One of the things that most concerns people is, if that IP address is taken away, what happens? How will we identify that household as accurately or as precisely as possible? The second big solution area is data collaboration. So if I'm a brand and I have my first party data, I may want to match that against a walled garden. I might want to match that to a large scale media owner off to the open web, through collaborations and co-ops, things like OpenAP in this sector, to a retail media network. I have a lot of collaborating I need to do in order to understand, is my audience on that property? And as a result, we've seen the number of use cases for data collaboration solutions increase pretty significantly. In this sector, linear and CTV come together, and I think about, all right, what is most important? Right now, most important is how do I activate? So if I define an audience, can I use data collaboration to do that overlap analysis and then to move that audience out so that I can use it for activation? I need it for planning so that I can size the audience and define the audience. I need it across linear, I need it across CTV, but I really need it for measurement. So these are all areas of collaboration. And so brands have turned to safe havens, clean rooms, bunkers, et cetera, as their solution and say, okay, which one should I use? The answer is they're using more than one, because if brand number one is using one type of collaboration solution, the media owner might use another one, the next brand uses a third one, the measurement party is using a fourth one, so that you have multiple clean rooms being engaged or multiple collaboration solutions that companies are leveraging. So 3 or more was the highest. The 5+, is growing, but you went from, is this a new concept? And maybe I will try one, to, I need multiple and I need them to talk to each other. And then there are those who aren't really sure what's going on at all. As we look forward, a couple of things. How do I make my identity solution interoperable? How do I crosswalk between the brand's ID and the media owner's ID? How do I make all of this compatible? There's no single identity solution that's going to be the be all and end all. How do I think about standardization of measurement solutions? What we are seeing is multiple currencies for measurement. So instead of it just being Nielsen, it may be Nielsen, it may be iSpot, it may be Video Amp, it may be ComScore. But the brands and the media owners have said, you know what, we're going to support a few of these so that we can balance out and understand what is the source of truth in measurement. We are going to see a proliferation of data collaboration solutions, across the ecosystem. Everybody will at least use one. And depending on what they're thinking about, should my data move, not move? How do I think about the governance between those? Depending on what I want to do and depending on who I want to partner with, I will need different solutions. Ultimately, we also think that if the programmatic marketplace became very dominated by the buy side, here's a place that the media owners, because so much of this inventory is direct sold, they have a different balance in terms of how they interact. So we're seeing a bit of rebalancing of power between the buy side and the sell side. I talked about that complexity. We are not going to see any of these buying paths go away, but we're going to start to see it rebalance. Over time, you'll probably see a little less set-top box because of cord cutting. Maybe it's ISP, maybe there are more streaming devices, but we're going to have to live with all 5 paths to the set, and you're going to have to be able to buy across. Where am I going to spend my money? Well, in the United States, because we're playing catch up, it's measurement first. I need to know what's working. This is very valuable investments, and I need to understand return on ad spend. Then I'm going to make sure that all my identity solutions talk to each other, and I have the right crosswalk. I have to understand what DSP should I be using, clean rooms, etc. All of these investments, and we saw across the board investment is going up in the sector, are going to lead the market in just identity for ATV to go from what was 2.25 billion last year up to $5.5 billion in 2026. The market's going to double, and it's spending on that portion of CDP, CRM, DMP, the second-party identity management platforms, the collaboration solutions, third-party graph data, and resolution itself. So it's a market that, while it's evolving, they're spending their money, they're not waiting, and they're testing everything. So one, I'd like to thank the sponsors from the paper, but most importantly, 3 of our sponsors are with us today, and I would like to ask them a few questions. So I'm going to exit out of that. Jay, Matt, Justin, thank you for joining today, and thank you for the help in crafting the paper. What I'd like to do is I'll go around, and Matt, you're on my upper left right now. So just a little bit of your background and your company to get started.
Hi, my name is Matt Frateroli. I'm Vice President of Partnerships, effectively, at Audienc. Audienc we're a data company, and we're a data analytics company. We come from an audience perspective. Our tagline is the audience company. So we come to market as we're ID agnostic, we're channel agnostic, we're platform agnostic. Our focus is bringing audiences to help make addressable TV actually addressable, right? That's the component. Our main place is we provide marketers with unique source of data, 250 million users across consumers across the United States, with highly informative transactional data. At the end of the day, we are one of the legs of the stool to try to make this a reality, and we work with all the partners here today, as well as those across the ecosystem.
Thank you. Right underneath Matt on my screen, Justin, give a little bit of background and on yourself at Ampersand.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Justin Rosen. I lead all things data analytics and insights at Ampersand. Ampersand is a media and technology company that is at the forefront of unifying advanced TV inventory and data. We bring together linear TV, addressable TV, and streaming inventory from all the major cable providers in the United States, representing over 80 million homes that are reachable through our inventory partnerships. 52 million of those are reachable addressably. And we have 42 million homes of set-top box viewing insights that we use to power our media platform to make those opportunities data-informed, audience-first, and transparently and accountably measured.
Thank you. And last, Jay.
Yeah, I'm Jay Prasad. I lead strategy for TV and measurement at LiveRamp. And LiveRamp is pretty well known in these circles as the company that makes data safe and easy to use and allows data to be connected within an enterprise and amongst the ecosystem as well. Within LiveRamp, our TV and measurement solutions really do focus on creating identity that can work across both the sell to sell as well as the sell to buy side. So example is we maintain subscriber level pseudonymized matches with all the MVPDs, with the smart TV makers, with the CTV apps, the programmers, and it allows the identity of subscribers to be able to be overlaid with partners. So if you have a programmer and a distributor, you can create those kind of partnerships. We provide activation and forecasting against any type of data within our platform and APIs. And then we also do measurement in multiple formats. We do measurement, of course, with Data Plus Math, which is our cross-screen measurement and attribution solution. And now as well within LiveRamp Safe Haven and a new product called Data Hub, which allows for custom attribution and measurement between buyers and sellers.
Great, thank you. So Jason, so you got to go last. You actually get the first question. I'm going to ask everybody to answer these questions so that we can discuss and listen to the different opinions. So first, Jay, you've been at this for a while. How are you seeing this convergence? How are you seeing the market evolving, especially with respect to identity?
Yeah, I think the combination of the goal of having a portfolio level marketing opportunity or portfolio level sale, like what Justin's team does, means that you have to be able to have an audience that has a definition that is understood by other buyers and sellers, and then have that audience be able to be forecasted across any type of screen or stream. And that only happens when you can apply identity to it, which means you have to household set-top boxes and TVs, mobile devices, computer devices, any screen where people are going to be viewing, and you have to create a privacy safe way of creating an identifier that can then feed into software systems that can apply data and give you something to be able to take action on. And then I think that's why it's become even more important, because that goal is clearly there. And then second is the increasing role of privacy and hopefully a national regulation that takes away ambiguity, means that if you're going to be dealing with identity, you also have to future-proof yourself and your consumers in that new reality.
and not holding my breath on national regulation at this point. We
I
will
don't
see
know.
what
Things
happens.
things are moving right now.
Things are moving. I'm not sure if they're moving in the right direction. So that is a question.
Remains to be seen.
Justin, love to get your thoughts on and also on where are we in terms of like, are we still in test? Are people thinking about this sort of, are we starting to really see the market move?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we are most focused on to help our clients is how to navigate the fragmentation of the industry. And I think the pace of that fragmentation is actually increasing. The technological advancements we've seen are amazing. They're putting much more power in the consumer's hands. We all know that. But what that means is the pace of fragmentation has gone up. Fragmentation across screens, across devices, national versus local versus addressable, delivery and technology and precision, TV versus streaming, you name it. So I think the evolving identity capabilities have to be able to reunify as best as possible across as many of those cross currents as possible. And that's where we're most focused. In order to be successful and for TV to drive the value that we believe it's worth, you've got to be able to continue to take advantage of its scale while introducing all of these new technologies, and identity solutions help you do that. The same audience activated at different levels of precisions and different pieces of technology or screens, reported consistently with the same methodology across different data sets on the back end.
Matt, you're the audience company. What's your view on this?
Yeah, I think I'll take a shot at the identity side of it first for the advanced ATV side. But I mean, we've seen an evolution that's more aligned of like folks are trying to figure out how do we do it, like put the pieces together, put the connectivity together. Which IDs are we going to map to? And that, as an audience company, we're focused on which IDs are we going to map to, so this all just works magically at some point. A lot of what we've found ourselves in especially the last 6 to 12 months, has been more about certain players in the industry. Like I need to make addressability real for me. And what that has put us in a position to do is working closer with very specific players who are trying to bring their solution so that they can do what they call true addressability into market. And at one level, that becomes kind of a single solution, right? Like not necessarily scalable in one way, but the way we're seeing it play out is that with the right building blocks, it becomes scalable. So as we walk in and say, well, we can use identity. What's your identity key preference? Oh, no, we want to map to our CRM database and we have IP coming off here. We, as an audience company, have those elements that we can then fulfill that way, right? For identity to link. But on the other hand, we would also like to see it become more scalable, where the identity keys become a currency and we just do that mapping once. So I think the evolution, we thought we'd be walking into mapping to identity keys and allowing that to flow through the world or flow through the ecosystem. And we're finding ourselves where the money is making sure our audiences are available now with the core building blocks of identity, and kind of identity keys as they are becoming the currency. Hopefully that becomes what is swapped out as it scales.
Justin, I want to kick off the next question with you. One of the things that we saw in the paper from the interviews is a convergence on how people will buy, at least from a platform perspective. How are the different, how are you seeing the buying shift? Because obviously linear media was bought differently. Digital has been programmatic, DSP based. How are you seeing buying evolve with all this complexity?
Yeah, I think, the buying will evolve only insofar as the planning and reporting capabilities can bring those together themselves. And I do think that's starting to happen. You can now look consistently at how one audience can be reached with different levels of precision, a national sort of contextual buy, a local geo-targeted buy, a household addressable targeted plan, and you can look holistically around how those opportunities can work together. And then you can report on the back end, unduplicate across those tactics to see how different investments work together and work apart. So that's a really key prerequisite for that to start happening. In addition, because you can layer on outcome level data and demonstrate attribution reporting tied to each of those types of investments, including for linear television. It also provides another metric with which to reunify all of those dollars to give a more holistic view. That's caused us, in addition, to be able to drive relationships at the brand level, who really just care about how are my dollars working for me that I'm investing to begin with. And that can also help drive that evolution on the buying side to be thinking much more holistically around how every last dollar is spent.
Right. Matt, when you think about it, because obviously you're marketing your audiences through the programmatic platforms, how are you seeing, adoption between the agencies with brands, et cetera? So how are they thinking about buying, and what have you seen over the last 18 months in terms of investment?
Well, I think it goes without saying that connected TV in terms of the share of programmatic buying, it kind of exploded from both kind of the post-COVID world. And we saw that directly with the share of dollars being spent there. But that was more of the traditional digital play, right? Like that was more of connecting things that were the ecosystem, the SSPs and the DSPs that were already connected in, or the kind of the new players that could connect in that way, say at IP level. I still think there is that buying component of when folks are coming from the linear side of, well, how do I control, to what Justin said, like I want to hit the same person everywhere, and then I want to be able to measure that and tie that together. It feels like there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of questions that still are not fully well understood. And to be out there trying to sell we're data and trying to kind of sell our data in the marketplace, create our own demand is kind of the mantra out there. You become an educator into the buying process, and that can become a little bit wonky, to be honest. That's not necessarily what we want to be. So we tend to go towards the buyers and the brands who are already executing on our digital buys and talking to them about TV and say, hey, you do want to target the same successful audience everywhere. How can we make that happen for you? And what partners do you work with, whether it be a measurement or otherwise in the ecosystem? Like how do you want us to fit in? And that's really been the conversation of where it's been successful in digital and tying that for us and tying that back into the TV.
Is that resonating with the linear buyers? Because it's always, the linear buyer has been in one silo and the digital buyer in another, and they could have different agencies working for them.
Absolutely. It's, you go through the Venn diagram of the overlap of which agency and which brand we work with and who's actually, sometimes it's on the agency side, sometimes it's on the brand side of looking for that connectivity so that you can get that sale through. But it's a challenge. I mean, that's part of the challenge right now, is that those are two different constituents still, right? On the linear side and the connected TV side.
Absolutely.
That's the sales challenge.
Yeah. Jay, you probably have the broadest view of the ecosystem because LiveRamp's connected almost everywhere. Love to get your thoughts on the buy side.
Yeah, I mean, the buy side is definitely looking to find a way to deal with fragmentation. And, that's one of the core services and technologies we provide, right? Where the brand can have its first party data. It can overlay additional audiences from any one of our over 300 partners in the data marketplace. And in the digital world, where you can just sort of get matches because they allow that, right? It's different in TV and CTV because the inventory is more scarce. And so we have a specific TV platform that sellers use to create forecasts, but it allows the buyer to have one audience and understand what reach it has across digital. And that includes the walled gardens, like what reach do they have in Facebook and TikTok, et cetera. And then another specific forecast that can cut across TV. Now, it would be great to have all of that in one place and deduplicated, but that doesn't quite exist yet. It happens in sort of piecemeal components. And then we're seeing a lot of brands really lean into this idea of data collaboration so that they can work with data that's really been, in essence, off limits. Like set-top box data has not really been available for brands to be able to do analytics with or to create addressable audience with in a way that combines their first-party data with set-top box data, right? That's a great opportunity for partners like Ampersand to unlock what addressability means going forward. And then they, of course, care about multi-currencies, but I think currencies are a step towards full funnel measurement. And that's ultimately what a brand wants. Having multiple currencies tell you how many counting mechanisms and methodologies you reached, and then they're different across the walled gardens, doesn't make it ultimately useful. But if all this data can fit into a full funnel approach on attribution, then it helps them rationalize their budgets regardless of where they're spending it.
Got it. Matt, as you go out and you speak to the agencies and you speak to the brands directly, what are they telling you their biggest challenges are?
I mean, you've heard the word fragmentation a lot here. Obviously, that's kind of key to what's going on. And from certainly from the agency perspective, but I think tying the solutions, it's what it seems like is a lot of folks out there who are currently executing in the space, are placing their bets. And I think what sometimes that's doing is it's kind of constricting kind of the broader solution as it goes to market. Meaning, if you're going after kind of a national buy and you're doing that and it's working for you, and then you have different things you want to do. You have a different client that comes in for the agency and they want to go down different, but you have to then find a separate way to deliver kind of say a local buy perhaps. And I think what we start out with in the conversation is, what are you trying to target? How are you trying to, what audience are you really trying to reach? And how can we fit into that? Can we fit into that? So where do we have to be and where do we have to play so that they can do what they want to do? And that point is the pieces are there. We all know each other. The industry is not that big. However,
you all partner with each other.
We all partner with each other. Even on our competitive set, we know each other, right? And we know kind of where folks are plugging in. But ultimately, to make it happen, even you get into differences of opinion and the nuances get into how are you tying together, whether, is it at the hashed email, are you doing the name and address match, and who are you going through to do that? The really knowledgeable buyers care about that because it's about the quality of the match. It's not just about, oh, we're in the system, just target our segments. And I think that's where we end up in the conversation, because we come from that space. We have the raw data, we have the raw PII. How it gets in there and where it's in the right place at the right time, that becomes more of the conversation for us.
Yeah. Jay, you're at the center of a lot of this interoperability conversation, because obviously you have your own ID, but you also support UID 2.0 from the trade desk and multiple. How are you thinking about interoperability and the other challenges?
Yeah, I think interoperability historically has been done through these crosswalks, which are in essence a file-based moment in time. And I think that's going to be replaced with things that can be done in real time in cloud and clean room environments, so that you can always maintain two identity spaces that are, what are you connecting to? Is it hashed email? Is it hashed email plus IP? Is it hashed email plus offline name and postal? We support all of those match types because we maintain graphs of those different types of identity assets. And recently we announced a real-time ramp ID encoding within Snowflake, so that two companies that have a clean room that both have a match with LiveRamp can in real time transcode company A identity to this version of a ramp ID to company B version with this ramp ID, allowing those companies to collaborate in a way where they're not having to move data, they're not having to ship PII to multiple clean room partners. So that's a way of sort of automating identity resolution, where it doesn't matter if your core identity is LiveRamp. It's as long as you maintain a endpoint match with LiveRamp, and then we can real-time transcode that to any other partner. And so I think that is a shift that is quite profound.
If your clients were to rank what's most important or what they're thinking about, how would where would you put interoperability at the ID level, at the clean room level, against complexity, et cetera?
Yeah, I think more and more people want to be sure that they are doing something that is privacy proof and consumer friendly. Secondly, I think they look at fidelity, and an indicator of fidelity would be your match rates and how you're able to create that scale against an audience. And then three is ease. How easy is it to use? And I think that's where you move away from crosswalks and mapping files into things that are more automated. That helps. And then you have to be somewhat ubiquitous, right? And I think this is where it's been a great advantage for the ecosystem and LiveRamp to work together on this. But having 550 plus endpoints where the identity works is really important. And that way people can choose and build. Another big trend is people are building their own first party identity graph, right? They're licensing core assets from somewhere. They're a company who has operations in multiple places, so they consolidate, data into a CDP. And then maybe they want to enhance that, right? And so how do you help a company who's got all these data assets actually graph their data assets and then potentially enhance them? And then once they're enhanced, they want to now work with the ecosystem, which is a totally different mindset than I need identity, so I'm just going to buy it from somebody. A lot of people want to build it, so you have to help them build it now.
A little more complex than, hey, just get me some cookies and we're ready to roll.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Justin, you come from the world of the big screen, the main screen in the house, but also as a broadband provider, with Charter, Cox, and Comcast, they're also playing that. How are you seeing this play out? And frankly, what are your partners and what are your clients saying to you?
I mean, look, we still think that TV, however you define it, we actually think all of what we're talking about is TV, is still the most powerful marketing vehicle out there. It's still the best way to drive scale the fastest. It's still the best viewing environment. It's still the best content. So the challenge is to bring all of these digital-like benefits to TV in a way that makes life simple for our client base. And it's that simplicity piece that is the challenge. We at Ampersand sort of uniquely sit at the intersection of audience building and planning, activation, and measurement and reporting. And so we understand a lot of the guts that make this, that can make the implementing an advanced TV program difficult and challenging. We try to make that opaque to a lot of our clients so that they don't have to experience that. But obviously, agencies and brands have a piece of that that's still surfaced to them. The great news is that we've made a lot of progress in starting to bring that together, right? We've brought together 52 million plus homes of the addressable market in one place. We've brought together 5, soon to be 6 MVPDs from a data and insights perspective and applied consistent methodology to how you can turn viewing intelligence into a more informed audience first buy. We've reported national, local, and addressable campaigns all together. So there's a lot of ways we started to sort of unfragment a lot of that world in a way that's starting to be a little bit more consistent and concise for our client base. We know that there's more for us to do. We're trying to keep pace with the technological change as best as possible. And I think we're starting to show some success. Clients that are the sort of our best clients are the ones that don't wait for the perfect. They're the ones that understand here's what can be done today. Let's learn the ropes with that. Let's get moving. And we know we'll be able to layer in additional pieces, whether that's speed, new technology, you name it, down the road.
Are you seeing any particular verticals, moving faster? Is it like in the direct marketing world, it was financial services, it was retail, et cetera. Are you seeing certain verticals, move faster than others?
If you're in a vertical that is data rich, where you have yourself as a brand marketer, incredible data assets that you can want to take advantage of in marketing for its own sake in a privacy compliant way, then those are the ones that frequently will lead the way. They want to be able to target their consumer much more precisely, tailor messaging to them much more granularly, and report back how that campaign performed with deterministic methodology and really provocative or effective KPIs. So whether you're financial or travel or retail, a lot of the ones you just named all have great data. Auto is a particularly fascinating use case because they do have great data, but the complexity of that market, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, can sort of bring all of these assets and all of these capabilities together all at once. Geo level precision, household level targeting, full funnel measurement with different KPIs. There's a lot that we can bring to bear for the auto category. In some ways, there's almost too much we can bring. So that's a category where we've made a lot of progress, but we don't want to overcomplicate matters given how many assets are at our disposal there.
Got it. Hey, Jay, we were talking before about loss of identifiers and privacy and regulatory. What do you think the impact of the IP address between the masking, the threat to actually being able to access, how is that going to impact this market?
Yeah, it definitely will. I think it's going to keep pushing the media industry to create a actual customer relationship with somebody. Meaning you have more than one identifier for a customer. You might have a billing relationship with that customer, and having that level of relationship and data will allow you to create other methods of saying, well, the IP address may become less stable, but we have ways of sort of stabilizing the signal in general. And that's going to be, I think, a key focus. And most likely, and this isn't amazing for this industry, is that we're going to probably start to see the size of data signals shrink then grow and shrink then grow, right? If you do get a national regulation that makes opt-in more explicit and more often, then you're going to have shrinking and then it's going to grow again. And so our systems are going to have to be smart enough to be able to still do all the things we've talked about with that sort of more dynamic size of panel or signal, which is most likely coming our way. And the IP address is just one example of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The IP address, on the one hand, it's personal, it's private to me or not, because it might be shared. On the other hand, it's also required. We need that for fraud and security, including it's part of the Patriot Act. Like, you can't make IP addresses go away. So they're going to be there. The question is, will they still be accurate? Or will we lose precision while that address is there? Matt, over the last 12 months, you've seen a lot of change. How do you see the next 6 months playing out? And then, into next year?
Yeah, okay, so like obviously the audience stance is where we come from. I think one of the challenges, opportunities, and one of the things that we're seeing kind of over time is we are, I think, as my team focuses on the TV market and our clients and shifting the buys into the ATV space. What keeps coming up is what hit us in programmatic, right? A little while, not too long ago, which is the notion of privacy, that just having partners isn't just going to solve the privacy problem, right? There's constant regulation going on. There's oh yes, we want to go down a path, but we're not so sure. So the legal play comes the legal discussion comes into play. And I think having, there's a level of the trusted partner that still has to be, is just deeply embedded in this space, right? You mentioned the IP changing, the IP issues changing, IP address changing. It doesn't just end there, right? And so for those of us looking forward, we are actually spending more time going back to the conversation of, yep, we deal with BII. We as a company, our compliance and staying up and staying at the forefront of that is a lot more relevant. I mean, maybe sound a little silly, but it's a lot more relevant now than ever. We know that. But one of the challenges going in space is this involves dealing with first-party data, right? Programmatic really did. We onboarded it. You got into play. There's cookies and those other things we make fun of now. But now we're dealing with first-party data, and it's not just the ATV space taking hold and shifting of how brands look at their spend and the different kind of core elements we need to put together. It's that focus on privacy and compliance is so innate, is so part of what we're all doing today. And so part of the success for this so deeply involves that. So I think our level of involvement now getting closer and closer to the brand, and even through the agencies indirectly, but to the brand is taking up a lot more time, but it also kind of, it fits to our wheelhouse, and it's making this like a more deep conversation. And it's making it kind of it's a different conversation. This is more like direct mail than it was about like programmatic. And I think that's one of the things we've seen for sure and are focused on.
Very much a solution sell and not a product sell. That's for certain. Justin, love your thoughts on how we should expect this year to evolve, and then what comes next.
Obviously there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of activity around these new currency solutions, tons of capital going in that direction. I think that pace will increase. We're excited about this too, right? We have an interest in evolving measurement and currency capabilities, given the breadth and complexity of the inventory that we represent. We also have measurement capabilities ourselves that are part of our media platform. So I think for us, we're excited about not just how these new currency solutions will operate, but how they can integrate with the platform that we've built. So I think that will be a major theme the rest of this year. What I think about a lot is, given that how much focus has very quickly gone in that direction, I don't want to lose sight of advancements in lower funnel attribution style measurement. There was a lot of excitement around that, a couple of years ago. And I don't want to lose momentum there, because I think that the breadth of data, the fidelity of matches that we can have with that data, the privacy compliance that we can respect, there's a lot that's possible in telling a very elegant story about the life of the consumer, vertical by vertical. And I think we haven't cracked that yet. So while I'm excited about the advancements in variety of currency opportunities out there, I don't want to lose sight of what can be done from a sort of attribution-based reporting and measurement capability.
Good. Jay, between planning and helping define, activation and measurement, what do you see for the next 6 months? And then what do you see as we look forward in the market?
Yeah, continued ability to execute more cleanly, I think, is what is in front of a lot of companies. On the buy side, right, just being able to have less hops and less friction to be able to apply data to their media, and being able to measure that, whether it's a new currency or it's counting or its value, right? I think they care about both. On the sell side, I think you just see continued focus on being able to forecast with some more accuracy. There would be even more data applied, especially in CTV, if it was easier to forecast. But if you get a new electric auto intender segment and your audience on streaming is entirely on demand based, it's difficult to get a forecast that makes it easy to execute that deal. But that is going to be solved for. I think the other interesting trend—
Is that a short-term solve for, or is that a 23, 24, 25?
No, it's short term, right? I think we've been working on integrations with ad servers so that audiences that have a reference to a ramp ID can be found within the ad server, whether or not that audience has ever existed before within that ad server. That's a new capability that I think would help solve that. The other interesting thing is that it's every big retail or commerce company is now a media company, right? Everyone wants to do what Amazon did. But now there's this, and those things are all based, those networks are based on data collaboration environments, right? So now that the sell side of TV is entering into these data collaboration environments, it's possible for retail media networks and TV ecosystems to actually work together. And that could unlock a ton of value. And if you think about how much marketing dollars go between CPG brands and retailers, for example, and you could make those dollars addressable and run across TV ecosystems and the retail media network and have one measurement, that could really be exciting.
I think the numbers that we saw, the forecast was for close to $40 billion of spend on retail media networks between media spend and programmatic and audiences, et cetera, in that ecosystem. So it is a lot. But how do I make that video work with those products? How do I know? How do I measure? How do I move that? I know we are getting close. Lightning question, and then I'm going to go to questions around. What's the most important thing that you expect to see happen in the next 6 months? Matt.
No time to think, right? Lightning. I think the solutions that are coming to market, there's an acceleration here, and you're going to see a lot of announcements in the next 6 months, less than 6 months, and a bunch of us are going to have those announcements. The challenge is what is real and what is smoke. And from our perspective, we can see where the transactions are coming through, and we see the smoke from our perspective. And I think very much that the reality, though, is going to start overplaying. Like there's the dollars and the solutions going to market are going to make addressability real. As one of our clients said, I want real addressability. I don't want just a description of addressability. And that's what's going to be happening. The dollars are going to be shifting in that 6-month period. And I think it's going to be a very good, interesting end of the year.
Got it. Jay, your thoughts?
I think building on what you just heard there, real dollars moving into addressability that's rooted in identity and actually measured to attribution. We have a lot of brand customers and sell-side customers who are working together to make that happen. And I would expect the scale of the dollars there to continue to grow, and probably even more so in a recessionary environment.
Got it. Justin, your thoughts?
I would simply say new currency in a way that is real and no longer just all talk.
Got it. For me, it's how do you keep up with all this? like the one thing that,
Just try. That's it.
You are reading, learning, seeing announcements every single day. It is, whether you're a brand, whether you're a media owner, whether you're an intermediary in the ecosystem, the rate of change seems to be far faster than even when programmatic was being adopted. And with more money at stake. We have a couple of minutes. Love to see what 2 questions. I see 2 in the Q&A box. Are TV ratings obsolete in an ATV world? Who would like to take that? Justin, you want to start because you came out of that world?
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess in a most literal sense, a TV rating is a type of metric. It's a calculation. It's a percentage. And do we see a shift industry-wide toward impression-based television at an audience level in a way that is multi-screen? Yes. So I think in the rawest sense, I expect the rating as the transaction metric to decrease over time and perhaps pretty quickly and to be replaced by audience-based impressions across screens.
Jay, your thoughts on that piece?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a bifurcation of measuring a currency for ad exposure and measurement for program viewing. Historically, right, the viewership proxy of a program was the proxy of how much ad exposure you got. And you don't have to do that anymore because you're going to be moving away from age and gender. You're going to want to measure advanced audiences. You're using data to do targeting. So you're just going to have now measurement systems that are different for measuring ad exposure and conversions to measuring how many people are watching actual programs regardless of screen. So the time is here for that.
And probably not such a narrow panel. The days of having a small panel and using that as the proxy, it seems like we're just going to have so much more information than we had before, Matt.
Expect another set of discussion, let's call it, around is it better to start with big data and refine down, or small data and project out because that's more trustworthy?
I hope what Justin's saying is the truth, right? Like if we're targeting at an individual household level, we should be measuring at that level, not going to some proxy because that was the best someone could do 30 years ago. No offense to my friends that are at those companies, but we can do better and we should do better. And it should be at the individual or household level.
I know we have come to the top of the hour. I want to thank you all for a great discussion today and for the participation and insight that you shared with us and that hopefully we can share with the community. Thank you, everyone. Chet, Barry, back to you.
Thank you all.
All right, and we will, and again, we'll make the presentation available, and of course, the 30 or 40 pages of white paper for people to digest. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon and a good 4th of July weekend.